Welcome back to our community. Susie Thomas visiting with Margaret Bonamico from Trumpet in the Land. We were talking about all the work that goes into preparing for something like this. And that very first year, that script, how much research did Paul Green need to do before he was able to come up with a script he was happy with?
Oh, it was quite extensive. Now, I wasn't here for the first 2 years of the show. I started the third season. So I didn't actually meet Paul Green until a few years after that. And unfortunately, Rachel passed away also, so that resource there is not available for me to ask that question. But I do know that it was at least a year, if not more, because he came here and he visited all the sites. He went to Shunbrunn, he went to Gnadenhutten, and he did extensive research. But I can't, in all honesty, give you exacts.
Mm-hmm. But that's enough to know that he did do all the visiting and see the places and walk through them. Now, Shunbrunn Village is recreated, but it's right on the grounds of the original.
Right.
For those not familiar with the story, Margaret, can you give us just a sketch of what Trumpet in the Land is about?
Sure. David Zeisberger was a Moravian missionary that lived in Pennsylvania, and he did a lot of work with the Native American tribes in the area, and not only in our area, but in other areas. And he had gone to his church board and wanted to come to this area to work with the Native American tribes. And the initial reaction was no, it was too dangerous. They didn't want him to bring people here. And so what they did is and it's a scene in the show, they said, let a drawing of the lots settle this matter. And they chose the lots, and it said yes. So he brought a small group of people to this area to settle. And unfortunately, they fell right between, the land they settled was right between the British and American forces during the American Revolution. And the Americans felt they were siding with the British, and the British felt they were siding with the Americans. And then add the Muncie tribe of Indians into all of that, and everybody felt that they were against them. And it was the American militiamen that actually came in and massacred all their people at Gnadenhutten. And, in reality, the Moravians were pacifists. They would help anybody that needed help as far as food and shelter and clothing, but they would not pick up arms to fight. And Colonel David Williamson was the American militiaman that actually came in when David Zeisberger was not in the settlement and took the people and said that he was there to help them, where in actuality he massacred all of them.
And so he was responsible for the move. Because what made them move from Shunbrunn to Gnadenhutten?
Well, the Shunbrunn was burnt down. They originally, so they moved to Gnadenhutten.
Okay. I remember something about them removing the roof from the church at Shunbrunn so that that building could not be used for any other purposes other than worship. Is there something about that?
They never did. They never did return, because there were some, David Zeisberger's sister Susan and a small group of other Moravians that were not at the settlement when they were massacred. And when they returned, like anybody, their initial reaction would be, let's just give up. But they didn't. And they said, in the memory of these people, let's rebuild. However, they never did return to Shunbrunn. That was a settlement that once it was burned, they never returned.
And it was done. So what we see now is honestly in memory and in honor of those people. What were the Moravian Indians as far as, was this a group of new converts, or by the time the Trumpet in the Land takes place, had there been a couple of generations of Christian Indians?
I don't know. I do know that David Zeisberger was, and if they just had a documentary that the Moravian churches had done. It was in the making for a couple of years, and they just showed that a couple of weeks ago at the Quaker Theater. Zeisberger actually was from Czechoslovakia. and then came here. I don't want to give a story because I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I'm not Moravian, and I don't want to do any injustice to their faith.
Sure.
And so I would prefer not to address that because I'm not 100% sure.
And how interesting is it that a gentleman from Czechoslovakia would have a heart for these particular people? And we see when you visit Shunbrunn, it is so interesting to see their way of life and just that simple way of life. And as you say, they were pacifists and wouldn't have really sided with either side, but got caught in a bad place between two warring countries.
And quite frankly, the Colonel David Williamson, the gentleman responsible for the massacre, he just had a hatred of the Native Americans because his mother was killed by them. Oh. And so it didn't matter that they were in, the dress of the day, that they weren't in the leggings and the dresses and everything. They were just in regular, clothes. But it didn't matter to him. That's a line in the show, is that they're all Indians. That's what he said.
Wow.
So.
Wow, he is the bad guy for sure. Yeah. Hard to get somebody to play that part?
Well, it's funny because the person, as an actor, people, they like to play villains. They said their villains are fun to play, but they're not very welcomed in the greeting line when people leave the amphitheater. Joe, before he played Gertie, and I think he's played Gertie for 30 years, but before he played Gertie, he played Williamson. Bart, who plays David Zeisberger, he also played Williamson before he became David Zeisberger. And the thing is that both of them have stories about people coming through the greeting line, and a lady hit one of them with her purse because she was so angry at them for him for what he did, and there's people that have kicked them and stuff. And so they finally said to me, both of them said this to me at one point when they played the role, do we have to go to greeting line?
Can we just sit that out? Well, it's a compliment to them and their acting abilities.
Sure.
That people really bought into this.
Sure it is.
Oh, my goodness. So, yes, because while they're living in the area throughout the summer, whether or not they're from these parts, they're shopping in stores and trying to get someone to wait on them in restaurants might be kind of difficult. But it is so realistic, and I think that's what that says, that it's so realistic. The horses, and can you talk about just the magnificent production qualities that are involved? Because I'm always impressed with the horses.
Oh, well, thank you. It is. It's a huge undertaking. And it's a lot of land, and outdoor dramas are bigger than life, and you have that opportunity that you can use spectacle that you cannot use in an indoor theater. The church that the Moravians were massacred in, that literally burns every night. Mm-hmm. And then we have fire pits, we have guns, we have the horses, but taking care of all of that is just, it's just a huge, huge job. Mm. And I always laugh because I tell people we have rehearsal for weapons, we have rehearsal for fire, we have rehearsal for horses, and we have rehearsal for rain, because there are certain things you cannot do if it's raining. And now if it's raining very hard, then obviously we're not going to do the show at all. But there are some things that even if it's a little drizzle, we can go on with the show. But there are certain things for safety reasons that you cannot do. Mm-hmm. So we have to have a rehearsal for rain. And then they all have to fit together like a big puzzle.
Wow. And then be ready on a dime to change from one to the next. Let's talk about weather a little bit. At what point, certainly kind of like a baseball game, if there's thunder, there's no program, but how much rain means no play?
Well, like I said, if it's a light mist or if it's a drizzle, we'll go on with it. But then if it starts to get harder, first of all, it's uncomfortable for the audience. Second of all, it's unsafe for the actors because they're up on top. The mountain is equivalent to like a 2-story building. Mm-hmm. So, and they dance up on top of that. And so you don't want them to slip because, you know,
Right.
moccasins sometimes can be a little slippery. So you don't want them to slip, and you don't want them to fall in any way, shape, or form. Or you don't want the horses to be coming down a path and it's wet
Right.
and trip and something like that. So those are some of the things. Like if it's rained really hard throughout the day and the paths get washed away, then sometimes you're not going to be able to use the horses at night, or you're going to have to bring them in from a different trail. That's a much shorter trail. And so those are all different types of things. And there might be one or two dances that we'll cut out. We don't cut out any of the play itself, but we might cut out a dance, or we might cut out a song that's not necessary in telling the story, but is just added for a little bit of entertainment.
And if there is, for any reason, that you need to send everyone home or stop it or not do it, is there a rain check like
Yes.
in sports?
Most definitely. Our rain checks can be used any year. We don't have any expiration dates on them. And so if last year we had a rain check that came back in from 1975. And the thing is that I asked the lady, I said, "You kept this long, I'm not even looking at the date." Because we have dates of every rain out back to the first year. And I said, "Well, how did you keep this?" She said, "You know, what happened is I put it on my bulletin board, and then over the years, things just kept getting stuffed on top of it." And she said, "And I decided one day to clean off my bulletin board, and these were stuck in the corner." She said, "I'm going to see if they'll let me use these." And I said, "Yep, we
That's
did.
cool.
We do. We have all the rain dates listed in our box office. So if anybody brings a ticket, and back then the tickets were like $8 or $9,
Oh,
but
right.
we don't charge you the difference. It's a fair
That's-
exchange.
Wow.
No, it's a fair exchange."
Wow, what a policy. We're speaking with Margaret Bonamico. She's general manager of Trumpet in the Land. If you got any tickets from 1970, go ahead and use them. They're still good. You mentioned that you do use volunteer ushers. And opening up this Friday, June 17th, you need any ushers? And how do people sign up to be able to do this?
Well, that is handled through an individual. If people are interested, they can give us a call, and she has her list pretty much together. But what she can do for this year is that if she needs if somebody's interested and she needs a substitute for somebody that's not already on the list and can't make it, then she will give you a call and she will talk to you about it. So.
Sounds great. Trumpet in the Land is such an awesome tradition in our area. You did mention some fundraisers, Margaret. Anything that you want to let us know about or ways that we can support it, because this is something we need to keep here.
Well, thank you very much. Well, we have a membership campaign that, any contribution and you become a member of the organization. We also do other things throughout the year. We'll do other performances or programs throughout the year, like we do something at Christmas. In October, we do Dracula out at the amphitheater. And it's a whole different feel in that amphitheater.
I would think.
And, and every little noise you hear out there, you're thinking, okay,
Ooh.
What is this? But, sometimes we do things like that. Or somebody just wants to send a contribution. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so your contribution is tax deductible, and you can send that to Post Office Box 450 in New Philadelphia.
Awesome. Trumpet in the Land opens this weekend. Margaret Bonamico, thank you so much for joining us on Our Community.
Thank you very much for having me on today. I enjoyed it.